Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, I'm not gonna lie to you. Sometimes I'm just behind on shit. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals. We pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more, in a light and in a conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do because you're listening. And if you are listening, please keep listening and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, gives you a 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere, places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. Unless we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So please give us a like and subscribe there as well. Also, we're on social media. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky. I lose track. There's so many. But find us at In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it that much more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that ultimate kindness. Come on by and pay us a visit. On this episode, we're catching up a little bit. We've been a little delinquent on this one. We're talking about the first word on horror, which has been a really fascinating doc-series that has been available online. It's been available on Substack. And it really looks through the finest horror writers working today, and each author discusses their life, inspirations, philosophies, and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of links to sort of just sort of the art of storytelling, and really is a bit of a love letter to just the art of telling a good story, a good creepy story too, because these authors really get to the heart of it all. All the episodes are available on Substack right now as we speak. But first, why don't you check out our interview with the director and creator of the series, Philip Gelatt, who is a name you may know because he gave us the fantastic Spine of the Night, the animated sort of grisly horror feature that action movie too. But it came out in 2021 during the pandemic. But if you haven't seen Spine of the Night, that's a hell of a lot of fun. But also check out this doc series. Like I said, it's on Substack. It's called The First Word on Horror. But first, enjoy our talk with the show's creator, Philip Gelatt, because it's a darn good one. All right. Well, Philip, I mean, obviously, first off, just man, thank you so much for the time today. I mean, congrats on the series. Absolutely loved it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Now, I mean, I guess the first question is like, what was sort of the inspiration to want to do this? Because I think I was so struck by just this almost played like a visual piece of poetry to me. I mean, kind of allowing sort of the author to sort of interweave themselves with the story that they're telling, and it's blurring the lines, and it's really creating this sort of fascinating portrait of, I guess, the artistry of being a writer.
So the inspiration, and you haven't, I don't think you've seen Laird's episode, but the inspiration is really Laird Barron, who is he's the guy in the trailer with the eye patch. So I've known Laird for a number of years, and I knew that his biography was really interesting, and I love his work. And then he got very, very sick. He talks about it in the episode when you see it. He got very sick and almost died. And I thought to myself, I can't let Laird die without sitting him down and getting him to tell me about his work and about his life. So we started with Laird's episode almost as a it's not really the pilot because it's not the first one we're releasing, but it was the proof of concept basically. Like could we sit and do a long, well shot interview with an author and then intercut it with one of his stories and get it, just to see if it would work, if it would be interesting. So we did Laird's, and Laird, again, you haven't seen it, but his the story he reads is called Frontier Death Song, and it's almost explicitly autobiographical. So the way that those two intercut also, sometimes you make a thing and you're not sure if it's going to work, and sometimes you make a thing and you try a thing and you're like, oh, that works better than I thought it was going to. And so that's what happened with the Laird episode. and it was so creatively exciting, and so selfishly, I just had so much fun talking to Laird on getting him to answer all these questions I had, that I thought, let's expand it, let's do more, and let's get these other authors, all of whom I knew had both interesting lives and uh you know were great writers, and get them to sit down and talk about not just their life, but also the creative process and also the horror genre to create. I love the way you described it, almost like a piece of visual poetry. That's very much the intention, is to make these, to have them live somewhere in the place between how to and biography and adaptation of a piece of fiction. Like, it's sort of all of them
Hmm.
in a way that I think is pretty fun. So
Was everyone sort of on board with the concept? Because I mean, like I said, the way they read the stories and they tell their own stories, it leans into the flourishes, which makes it all that much more compelling.
everybody was on board. I will put an asterisk by that and say very few of them saw any episodes. None, actually, in fact, none of them saw any episodes completed before they had already agreed and shot their interviews, right? So
Right.
they didn't really, what I would say to them was, would you come and do this interview with us? We're also going to have you read one of your stories, and then I'm going to intercut that interview with the story. And they didn't, I mean, beyond that, they didn't really know how it was going to work. But that being said, all of them, having seen their episodes, were all very excited by the way that it's worked, and really, yeah, I think everyone has been very pleased, which is nice. Uh, I think that I may have said to each of them, when you see your episode, if there's some part you don't like, let me know, and I'll take it out. And only one of them said yes, but I can't tell you what part they had me cut out. So I'm just gonna let that I'm just gonna let that mystery ride, because I don't want to betray their trust.
Now, I'm curious though, because I mean, I can imagine on one end as a director, there's a temptation to sort of steer things when you where you need it to go, but at the same time, in watching this, it felt like you were very hands off.
Yeah. I mean, almost completely hands off in terms of the, well, I mean, I would write the questions and I would ask follow-up questions, but it's not like I never coached an answer. And for the readings, I wanted them to read how they would read it. So we did multiple takes, but I never, well, maybe with one or two exceptions, I never directed the reading performances. I never said, do that line again, do that. I just sort of wanted to let them be who they are. Which honestly relates again to like the whole um impetus for the project, is like, I want to present these authors and their work as it is, as they are. Like here's this person, here's their lives, this is how it feels to talk to them, this is who they are. So to over direct it in that sense would have felt disingenuous. However, there's quite a bit of direction going on in as I'm sure you can tell, in the editing, and in
Right,
terms
right.
of like how the and also in terms of like where we're, you know yeah, basically the editing, choosing to suture out bits of the interview to bring the story back in. Those are all done, with directorial intent, quite obviously. So yeah.
Was releasing this via Substack sort of always sort of the intent? Because I mean, again, it's one of those things where if you had tried to shoehorn this into a more sort of traditional episodic structure, it would have felt a bit more, it would have felt forced, it would have felt awkward.
Yeah. So Substack specifically was not always the idea, but something unusual always was, right? And to be totally honest, we tried with Laird's cut to turn it into like a 22-minute, or there's maybe a 40-minute cut, and I was like, this is fine, but I think we can find a more interesting way to do this. So the idea of the Substack release sort of evolved over the course of the last year as we were cutting the pieces together, and I was like, oh, what if we made them shorter and we made them more of them, and then we could, maybe we could try this experimental release idea. So it sort of all happened organically in a nice kind of, I don't want to call it a happy accident, but it just sort of came together and coalesced.
Now, I'm kind of curious just to put a bow on this. Obviously, as you talked to all these great writers, and I mean, you've done your films and written yourself, how do you feel sort of seeing their first word on horror has kind of defined your first word on horror, if that makes any sense?
It does. I mean, what a good question. I think what's interesting, and this is actually a real challenge sometimes in the interview, is that I want to make it a discussion. So like I disagree with a number of them on a number of points about the genre and about things, but it's not like I never stop the interview to be like, well, actually, I think the opposite, right? So, but that's also like it also what makes the series so exciting to me is that I'd love to hear other opinions that I don't agree with and get a chance to sort of think them through. So I would say it's been massively influential in my own thinking in the genre, both in terms of moments where I could point to and say, oh, I completely agree with that, and it sort of shores up my thinking on the genre, but then also in terms of being forced to think about it differently. It's always good when you love an art form or a genre, in this case horror, to be able to step out of your opinion of it and examine it, from the outside again, and it sort of revitalizes your thinking on it, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I mean, it's one of those things where to get to see these storytellers and these artists get sort of immersed in their own art, which is one of those things that I think as fans we often take for granted. And I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing just to get to see that experience for all of them. But like honestly, man, this is a beautiful piece of work. I can't wait for more people to see it. But just thank you again for the time and just congrats on the series.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was great. Thank
You're
you
very welcome,
for
Phil. All right.
watching it, and yeah, thank you.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.